Hello, and welcome back to Mastering the Wilderness in Project Zomboid. If you haven't watched the previous couple of episodes, I would recommend doing that before watching this one. Some of the skills are going to carry over. Today we're going to be hanging out with Jim here. He's the brother of Gene, and he's going to be teaching us about some trapping today. Alright, so to start off, trapping is probably one of the more difficult skills to level up as far as survival. Especially if you're doing a pure wilderness run, it can be quite difficult just because of the special materials and skills you need to make the traps, things like wire, nails, and a lot of tools as well. So we're going to go over which items you need to make those, what bait to put them in, where to put them, and what you can catch with them. So first off, if you're planning on starting trapping early, I would highly recommend going with the park ranger occupation if you're okay with building off of an occupation. Because Park Ranger is going to give you a bonus to your axe, your carpentry, which you'll need for crafting traps, foraging, which you can use for finding bait, and also +2 trapping, which is very important. There aren't a lot of traits or occupations in the game that give a bonus to trapping. So you need 3 trapping to be able to craft the traps and 1 carpentry. So in order to get that, what we want to go with, or what I went with anyways, is wilderness knowledge. That gives you bonus to carving, which you need to make the wooden rods for the traps. Foraging, more for bait as well. Napping, which you are going to want to use to make things like knives, and when you get your napping high enough, you can learn to make a saw. So that is something you can do for a pure wilderness run, although it does take quite a bit of work. You have to get your napping quite high to be able to make the saw. And then +1 to maintenance, which is also required for crafting some things here. And then I took hiker, so you have kind of a choice between hiker and hunter. Hiker costs 6 points and hunter costs 8. I would recommend probably hiker over hunter. It's cheaper. If you're doing traps, you don't really need the aiming and stuff like that, which obviously you can take hunter if you plan on doing hunting and gun stuff as well, but this is kind of from a more of a wilderness based run. And then it gives you that extra point in trapping as well to get your trapping up to 3. And then I also took inventive because that makes it easier to auto learn recipes, which can be really useful when you're in the wild and you don't have access to magazines or books and you're relying strictly on auto learning recipes or from researching them. And then I just took some negative traits to balance that out. So 3 magazines you'll want to keep in mind when doing this is small game hunting, which teaches you to make the snare trap, the hunter, which teaches you to make the crate trap and the stick trap. Although the park ranger also teaches you how to make the traps as well, so that's something to keep in mind. And then wildlife preserve is another box, or magazine. So these are the 3 magazines you want to keep in mind to learning to make traps if you don't have an occupation or skill that enables that. I'm going to try and be as accurate as I can with the information. A lot of this stuff is still fairly new. I am playing the experimental build. I'm on 42.13.1 right now, as you can see down here in the corner. So that is something to keep in mind. If you're playing on build 41, it's going to be slightly different, although a lot of the stuff still carries over. I believe they haven't changed a whole lot. Now that we've got the occupation and the traits out of the way, the skills you'll want to keep in mind for this, specifically for the trapping, is going to be your trapping skill, obviously. Foraging you're going to want to use for finding bait for your traps. And then we've also got napping, which you use to make sharp objects, make knives and stuff in the wild. Not critical unless you really need a way to craft your own knives. Carving, we need to make the wooden rods that we use to make the traps, as well as carpentry is needed to make some of the traps. And then other skills you will want to keep in mind also will be things like cooking. If you want to take cooking for preparing your food, you get a lot more out of it when you learn how to cook. Also butchering, which is a skill you're going to learn obviously from taking care of what you catch, but the higher that is, the better quality and more food you're going to get from the meat that you harvest out of your animals. Alright, and then next what we're going to need as far as crafting materials is a hammer, nails, pliers. We'll grab our stone blade, twine, wire. We obviously don't need this much. I'm just grabbing it all while we have it here. And a wood saw, or a saw of some sort. And then we'll also need these rods. Let's go ahead and set this stuff here where we can work with it. Alright, now the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to gather some planks. So what we'll do is we'll grab our saw. Another thing to keep in mind, if you research this, it will teach you how to craft a saw or make a plank with saw. That's Alright, so what we're going to want first is we're going to want some planks. So let's just unstack these logs real quick. Bring them over here and drop them. And then we're just going to cut those into some planks real quick here. There we go. Now you can get these planks anywhere, obviously. You can find them from digging around in boxes, foraging. You can make your own. You can cut up the larger tree branches, I believe, for them. Looks like we're a little hungry and thirsty. Let's just have a little drink of water here. There we go. We'll worry about the food later. Alright, so we've got a whole bunch of piles of materials here. So next we're going to want to start crafting some traps. The first and most basic trap you can make is the stick trap, and this can be used to catch birds. And that's 4 rods and some twine. So we're going to craft one of those. Alright, we've got a stick trap now. And then the next level up is the snare trap. And that is a saw, a plank, and twine. And we will craft one of these as well. And the snare trap is useful for catching squirrels and rabbits. Wrong button there. Alright. Alright, then we've also got the crate trap, which this doesn't have any requirements because I believe that's something you learn from the park ranger occupation. So we will make one of those as well. There we go. And then the next one up is the box trap, which requires 2 trapping and 1 carpentry, and that is essentially the same as the crate trap, although I believe if they haven't changed it, it's not quite as good. So the crate trap is a little bit better than the box trap, I believe. Oh, we're getting a little heavy here. Let's set some of this stuff down for now. Alright, and then at the very top of the list is the cage trap that requires 3 trapping, wire, and pliers. So this is probably one of the hardest to make on a wilderness run simply because of the wire. If you know the recipe to dismantle the broken fishing traps, you can use those to make wire, but I believe you have to learn that skill from a magazine, so it's one of the more difficult ones to do in a pure wilderness run. Alright, there we go. Now we've got 1 of each trap made. Let's go ahead and just pack these up in our bag here. As many of them as we can fit. And I've already got a bunch of stuff on me to use as bait. A lot of it you can find foraging or just digging around in the trash or from houses or anywhere else you need. Now we'll just keep these here. Just going to put our tools in our bag. Actually, we'll just stick that on our belt. There we go. Okay, cage trap won't fit, that's fine. Alright, so now that we've got our traps made, as you can see, they're all fairly easy to make, and it's going to depend on your skill levels. Obviously, you may not start with 3 trapping, and you might have to work your way up just building smaller traps and using those, but for the sake of this video, I'd like to go through each one. So the next thing to consider is where you're going to be setting your traps up at. You can use the investigate area to see what kind of area you're in, and different traps are going to catch different animals, obviously, and different animals are going to be found easier in different regions. So the mouse trap, which we didn't craft. It can't be crafted. You can just find them. Catches mice and rats, and that's the lowest level trap. I didn't bring one of those along simply because those are best used around farms and trailer parks and stuff like that. The stick trap will catch birds. The snare trap will catch squirrels and rabbits, as well as the box trap and the crate trap and the cage trap. But each successive trap in the line is a stronger trap. So it's going to be less likely to break when things are caught in it and so forth. Okay, so when you're setting up your traps, you want to make sure and set them up at least 75 squares away from anywhere you're going to be. You want to stay completely out of that area. If you go into the area, it'll reset the timer. You can see the squares by using the walk to function. Just right click and go walk to, or by default it's bound to the Y key. So that'll kind of give you an idea of how far. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just go straight north from the camp here, all the way up here. We're going to follow this water. You'll always want to make sure to have this stuff to mark your map where you put them, or put them somewhere where you know you'll be able to find them. There we go. This should be 75 squares away or so. Let's see, are we still... Birch mixed forest, alright. So, what we will do is we will set up some traps. We just right click, go place trap, then we'll set it down. We'll set up our cage trap here. And then we right click on it, go to add bait, and then we choose what kind of bait. So you want to look at what the trap will catch. So cage trap is the highest level one, and that's going to catch squirrels and rabbits. So you're going to want to put something in there that's going to be palatable to squirrels or rabbits. So we happen to have some carrots that you can find. So there we go. We've got that in there, and that's set up. Let's see the next trap. I'm just going in order of where they are in my list here. So we've got a box trap, which is going to be quite similar to the cage trap and the crate trap. All three of these are going to be pretty much the same as far as what they'll catch. They just have different values of strength. So we're going to get that out of my bag, and then we'll set up this box trap here, and then we'll set up the crate trap here, and then we'll add some bait. And these are the same type of traps. They catch either rabbits or squirrels. So we'll put, let's see, we'll put some peanuts in this one. Maybe we'll catch a squirrel. And then we'll put some peanut butter. Squirrels like peanut butter as well. I'm not going for any particular animal. You can obviously do things that are geared more towards the specific animal you want to catch. Like rabbits love carrots, squirrels love peanut butter, mice love cheese and sweets like chocolate, and birds like bugs. So, you can kind of gear your traps to what you want to catch to a degree. But things like the box traps and crate traps, those all catch the same thing anyways. They're just differing strengths. So here we are with the two main ones you're going to start out with. And that's going to be the stick trap, which will catch small animals. And for the bait for that, we'll add, how about a fresh tomato? And then we'll set our snare trap up. Now, I don't know if having these traps so close to each other is going to make a difference or not that I'm aware of. Alright, so this is going to be the same sort of thing. So we're going to want, let's see, what should we put in the snare trap? It's going to be squirrels or rabbits. Let's put some carrots. There we go. Now I've got all our traps baited, so what we want to do next is we want to get at least 75 tiles away from them for at least an hour. I believe the timer checks every hour as to whether you've caught anything or not. And I believe you don't want to leave it for more than 20 hours. Once you hit the 20-hour mark, it increases the chances of it breaking. So we're just going to head back to our camp over here. That should be 75 tiles away, I hope. And then we are going to have a little sip of some water here. And we'll eat some of our peanut butter that we have that we're using for bait just to keep ourselves fed. So we're going to check the time here. It is currently 11:40. So another thing to keep in mind is the times that you're likely to catch animals. I believe birds you can catch pretty much any time, but all the other animals are going to be mostly during the night. So between, 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. ish. As far as the different zones, mice and rats, obviously, we spoke about before, farms, stuff like that. When you get later into the game, you'll see them running around in towns and just anywhere you would expect to find rats. Birds, pretty much spread evenly throughout the game. You don't have to worry about that. Rabbits and squirrels are more rare, but they're best found in the deep forest, and vegetation, and such. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And also, try not to set up your traps near any areas where there are lots of zombies, because zombies will be attracted to your trap like they are a running generator. So if there is an animal stuck in your trap, zombies will come running for it. So we're going to just nom up the rest of this peanut butter real quick. We were pretty hungry. And then it is 12 o'clock, so we will wait. 12 will be, so maybe we'll head back at 5 a.m., 4 or 5 a.m., and see what it looks like then. Just probably right when it starts getting light again. So we're going to sit here, and I will see you when we're ready to head out. Alright, well, the area we had him set up in wasn't the best area for it, so we've just gone ahead and moved a little bit into a denser area of forest. As you can see down here now, it's saying animals is normal, so we may have a better chance setting it up here. Another thing to keep in mind is it's always useful to have a pen or something on you so you can mark where you put your traps. I missed the mod that lets me resize that, but that'll have to do. Turn the symbols on, and then what I'll try and do is just put one at each. We'll go to, I'm going to try and put one at each point of the X on there at the zoom level that it's at. Alright, we'll put our box trap here. And we will put a tomato in there. And then we will put our crate trap over here. And we will put some cereal in there. And then we've just got it down here. And that way with one on each point, they'll be easier to find. They're kind of on each point. I mean, obviously it's not a straight X. It's kind of bent, so it is what it is, but it'll work. Then we'll set our snare trap here. And we will add some peanuts. Alright, we got all these set up. It is 8 p.m. on the dot. So we are going to get our hiney out of the zone. I think what we'll do is we'll just head up to this street here and follow it out of the way. Now, obviously, during normal gameplay, you're going to use this time to do other stuff, work on your base, explore, loot, forage, craft, whatever. But for the sake of this particular, I guess, lesson or guide, we don't want to worry too much about that, since this isn't really a full playthrough. Alright, so I'm going to wait here for a little bit of time. It takes over every hour, I believe, so we'll wait. It's 8 p.m., so I think what we'll do is the best time to catch things is during night, so I think we'll wait until probably about 5 a.m., and then we'll go see if we caught anything. I believe we should be far enough away now. I hope so. So we're just going to have a little seat here, and we're going to rest until it is time. So I will see you when we're ready to go check on those traps. Alright, we waited overnight. Now we're just going to head down here and check our traps. See if we caught anything. Oh, it looks like the box trap's closed. That trap's down. The cage trap's still open. And the snare's there. Alright, let's check this trap first. It's making noise. A raccoon. Alright, so we caught a raccoon. You sit right there. Let's go check this other trap. Nothing in that, so we'll just put some new bait in there. Haha, picked you up again. Alright, and let's just go double check these. So there you go, we caught a raccoon. That's still got bait in it. Normally I'd go through the process of dealing with this. We'll see if we got anything else in any of these other ones. Nothing. Alright, so as unfortunate as it is part of trapping that we have to handle the animals that we have caught. So we will go with that next. So what we're going to do is we're just going to head back to our camp. Alright, now that we have got home, we have to do the unwelcome but necessary task of survival. I also noticed that we have a squirrel we must have caught in one of the snare traps. I'm going to put this little guy down and shield your eyes. Don't worry, it was painless. Alright, now that that unpleasant task is taken care of, you're going to need a very important tool for butchering, and that is a knife. A good knife. You can't use things like, a flint shard or anything. It has to be an actual knife. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that real quick. That made us quite messy, so let's go ahead and wash up real quick. Now that that's done, let's see what we got. We got quite a few cuts of rodent meat, so that's not bad. And we got the head, which we also use butchering skill on. And that will give us the skull that we can use to make bone shards out of. Let's set it over here with this other skull we found while we were foraging. And then a hide, which you can use to make leather and stuff out of. A lot of this stuff we'll cover in a further episode, as well as butchering. Butchering is much more complicated than this, so we'll delve into that when we've got enough time to focus solely on that. So now that we've got this stuff, what we will do is we will grab our water pot. We're going to need to fill it up here. Alright, we got that full. We're just going to stick that in our fire here. Get that log out of there. Don't know why that's in there. Alright, stick that in there until that's clean. Should be any time now. There we go. Alright. Now, let's grab this. And we are going to create a stew with the meat we just caught out of our trap. So we're just going to add all of that. And since that's all we've got right now, we're just going to keep on adding that to it for now. And we're just going to make some nice stack stew, and we'll add a tomato also we found from foraging. And then we're just going to stick that in our fire here. And wait for it to cook. Now, stew does take longer than most things to cook, so that is something to keep in mind if you're in a hurry. There we go. And now, if you're trying to live out in the wild, and you have to eat what you can. It's not necessarily the best thing, but it's better than dying of starvation. So here we have some rodent and tomato stew. A lot of unhappiness, unfortunately, because it contains a lot of the same stuff, but it'll get that hunger down. We'll just nom down on some of that. And not the most pleasant meal, but it'll keep us alive. So hopefully that has helped clear up some things with traps as far as the basics go. We can always delve into it later, some of the higher skill stuff at a different time. If you have any questions or if I missed anything you can think of, let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to see more, go ahead and think about subscribing. I plan on doing a whole series with this, going much further than just the third one. So let me know what you think. Until next time, take care, be safe, and I will see you later.